and welcome to the Kink Perspective. My name's Chris. I'm a psychotherapist and consultant. Today we're going to jump into a topic that's really close to a lot of people. I've been doing some writings lately about our emotions, are struggling to feel wanted. There are some of you who've reached out and said that you're not able to read them, or you've seen glimpses of them on my website. You'd like me to expand on them a bit more. So today I'm going to talk about emotional intimacy and even feeling wanted in the lifestyle or even in regular relationships. It's not really something that gets talked about a lot, let alone even enough, but it's really so important for building healthy connections. Now, before I jump into this today, I want to give a huge shout out to all my listeners, both old and new. Your support really means a lot to me, guys. I appreciate it. You're helping me get the show out there. You're starting to listen. You're starting to understand. You're giving me questions and feedback. This is allowing me to grow the show. And if you really do enjoy what you hear and you want to keep the podcast going, please consider checking out the donation link in the description. This allows me to continue to build the show, have these vital conversations, and support the community in that everything I do. Also, if you follow me on Spotify, you can only do so on the app, but go there, hit the little 3 dots, rate my show 5 stars, really start to boost it up for me. That way I can get the show even out there further. I'm trying to keep the show ad-free right now. Or if you follow me on Apple, please, again, I know I have quite a few listeners there. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button and rate me 5 stars. Really does help me, and if you don't want to do that, could you send me a message, tell me what I need to improve to get those 5 stars from you? Really would help me out. So let's really dive into today what emotional neglect really means. And really at its essence, its core here, emotional neglect occurs when someone emotionally needs are consistently overlooked, whether that's intentional or even unintentionally. This kind of manifests in a lot of different ways, such as maybe lack of empathy or lack of support, or maybe even feeling acknowledged when you're in a time of need. No matter what, in many of these cases, people who experience emotional neglect may not even realize it's happening until they find themselves grappling with these feelings of loneliness or maybe even invisibility inside of their relationships. And the whole prevalence here of emotional neglect is often understated. Many people go through life feeling that their emotional needs are secondary to others, and this can happen in a wide range of relationships, family dynamics, friendships, our romantic partners. It's important to understand that this isn't just about overt acts of neglect here. It's really about the absence of nurturing behaviors that reinforce a sense of safety and belonging. When these nurturing elements are missing, it can lead to a profound sense of emotional isolation. Now, let's kind of bring up here how our past experiences of neglect influence our present perceptions of intimacy. For a lot of people who faced emotional neglect, the scars of those experiences can shape their expectations and their interactions in their current relationships. They might develop, a heightened sensitivity to perceived slights or misunderstandings. For example, if a partner is busy or distracted, it can trigger old wounds, prompting people to feel unwanted or unworthy. And this type of reaction is really rooted in past experiences rather than the reflection of the current situation that they're in. And these feelings can lead to really a vicious cycle. If someone's constantly worried about being a burden, they might hesitate to express their needs or their desires, fearing it could push somebody else away. And this creates an emotional distance in our relationships as partners might feel uncertain about how to connect. And understanding this type of dynamic is really essential because it highlights the importance of open communication. And I talk about communication a lot. I don't think there's a show I don't mention it, but if we recognize that these fears often stem from this past neglect, individuals begin to approach their relationships a little bit differently. They're a lot more aware and they have a lot more empathy, not only for themselves, but for their partner. And they're not going into it thinking, I'm not going to repeat the same problems of my past. I'm going to start opening up. And this is where we tend to make this mistake. Now, if we can acknowledge that, there's been some emotional neglect and its impact, and we understand how this becomes a real powerful force towards moving forward and healing ourselves. And it does pave a way for us to reclaim our own self-worth and a deeper, more meaningful connection in the relationships we're going to have with either people that are present in our lives or the ones that are going to come into it. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be easy, but it is a vital part for creating that environment of intimacy and emotional safety that we want and that we crave. So, how do we deal with some of these triggers of maybe feeling unwanted? Well, I want to talk about some common situations that can trigger those uncomfortable feelings of being unwanted. And one of the biggest ones is that whole delayed response to a text. Now, we live in a fast-paced world. We live in I love to call it the whole, fast food experience. We expect our stuff now, ready, hot, and when we want it. But, when we expect a quick reply and someone takes a little bit longer to respond, it's going to stir up some of that anxiety. And if you have a history of emotional neglect, that delay might trigger thoughts like, God, did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? Am I bothering them? These worries can quickly spiral for us, and it can pull us back into our old feelings of being unimportant. And another major trigger is when a partner seems emotionally distant during a conversation. Maybe they're distracted or they're not really fully engaged. And it can feel like you're being rejected a little bit, even if there's not really a problem at all. And it can be easy to misinterpret the distance as a sign that, that they're not valued or loved, which can feel familiar and painful. And, I've also talked about active listening when our partners want to talk to us. So it's not just important that our partner's listening to us, but that we are actually listening to them. Now, this is where this whole emotional flashback comes into play. For many, many of us, these flashbacks can pop up during the most everyday moments, and they lead to really these intense feelings of inadequacy, loneliness, heartache. And even if everything's okay on the surface, past experiences of neglect can make someone feel as if they don't matter. It's as if they're living through the past all over again, and even if their current partner is there, wanting to connect, they just feel like there's this incredible distance, like they're on two separate islands. Now, what's important here to recognize is that feeling unwanted isn't necessarily a reflection of your reality. It's just a feeling that, gets tied to the past wounds that we've had. And rather than, we need to start looking at it, those are wounds from our past. Maybe we need to work on them, but that's not what's happening now. And if we can understand this, we can start to reframe our experiences and have conversations with our partners about our feelings, or with our friends, or with our family. This not only helps them process those triggers that we experience, but it really does grow a deeper emotional connection between us and them. Being able to communicate needs without fear creates a more secure space for each person that's involved in our life. So, why do we give any of this weight to our past experiences? Well, they shape the way we react emotionally today. And if we recognize that these past wounds and we look at them, we understand them, this becomes crucial because they often color our perceptions and responses in the present. Many people who have faced emotional neglect carry these invisible scars with them, and without awareness, those scars can influence, things like how they engage in their current relationships, who they're talking to, how their trust is formed, their boundaries. And for someone who's been made to feel undervalued, ignored, it's easy to slip into this mindset that they don't deserve love or attention. And let me tell you, I work with a lot of people. This tends to happen. And it's all about reframing our mindset. Now, this belief creates this constant sense here of unease. And it makes them overly sensitive to any sign of distance or disinterest from their partners. When those old feelings come back, and they tend to do that, especially if we haven't processed them correctly, it's almost like hitting a reset button on the past. And we start to feel invisible all over again. And even when everything in their current relationship is, going well and tries to tell you otherwise, we don't feel that way. So how can we start to untangle these past experiences from what's happening now? Well, one effective strategy is to practice mindfulness. By becoming more aware of our thoughts and feelings in the moment, we begin to identify them when we're reacting to past wounds rather than the present situation. It's about taking a step back, asking ourselves, is this feeling based on what's going on right now in this moment? Or, is this something from my past that's kind of creeping back into the present? Am I a little bit nervous about something? Another helpful approach here, journaling. I know a lot of people don't like to write, but you know what? If you are seeing a therapist, it's going to help them understand and help you understand when these feelings are arising, what maybe happened around it, and how you can work on it and set something down for the future to work through it. When you write down your thoughts, it can create clarity and allows us to process those emotions more effectively. When we put our feelings on paper, it can be easier to see the patterns or the reoccurring themes that point back to our past. And it also allows us a way to maybe traverse what's going on emotionally so we can understand, hey, I was watching TV, I heard a song, and this was the song that happened, and it took me back to that moment. So we start to understand these things. And that way we can even work maybe on desensitizing ourselves to these things. These reflections help us recognize the triggers and differentiate them from our current reality. Now, finally, don't underestimate the power of talking things through with a friend or, like I said, a therapist. Even some of you who are spiritual, maybe you want to go into church or a priest or a father or some sort of spiritual advisor. Sometimes just talking about those fears can help put them in a perspective and reveal how much they stem from the past rather than the present truth. And I think that's a really important point. You got to remember what's going on now isn't a reflection of what happened in your past. Connecting with somebody else in an environment that provides reassurance and lets us know that we are worthy of love and that our current relationships can be different from what we've experienced before. If we understand and acknowledge all of these things, the weight of our past experiences doesn't mean we have to be defined by them. And I think we need to also take that into account, because a lot of us hold on to it and thinks, well, this is the defining moment of my life. This is all who I'm going to be. That's not true. This whole path of healing and growth that someone goes on, it allows you to form deeper connections, understand yourself, and heal from those wounds so you can embrace intimacy that you truly deserve. And we have to remember that. We have to keep these things in mind, because if we don't, we allow doubt to come in. So how do we reclaim any of the space or importance to feel better? Well, let's talk about this idea of reclaiming our agency here and how important we are in our relationships. Now, first off, you have to be your own self-advocate, and that's key. We have to recognize that you have every right to take up space and ask for love. You're not just someone who should blend into the background. Your feelings, your needs are just as valid as your partner's and everyone else's. When you stand up for what you need, you remind both yourself and your partner that you matter. Right? Guess what I'm coming back to right now? Open communication. One of the biggest parts of building emotional intimacy. This is where vulnerability and all these things come in. It's about creating an environment where both you and your partner get comfortable sharing your thoughts and your feelings. And don't hesitate about setting boundaries, because that's not about pushing someone away. That's just making sure that you both understand each other better. And when you clearly express what you need, it paves a really good foundation for the two of you to move in deeper and trust each other more. Now, let's talk a little bit about self-acceptance here. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, well, I'm a burden or that my needs are too demanding. But, it's time to flip that around. Let's flip that script over. Practice some positive self-talk and remind yourself that you have every right to be loved and cared for. Right? Just because you're a dominant doesn't mean you're not worthy of your submissive's love or somebody else's love. Just because you're a sub doesn't mean you're not worthy of love and being taken care of. You have to start affirming your worth and the unique contributions you bring to the relationships, because it's not one-sided. All of this takes both of you to make it work. Right? You have to remember that reclaiming your space means embracing who you are and realizing you deserve to be an active part of that connection. And it's going to take some time and practice. But, with a little bit of self advocacy here, open communication, you really do form the emotional intimacy you truly want and desire and deserve. And I know it's not easy. I think a lot of people come to me and they're like, why do I want to sit in front of a mirror and talk about this? Why do I want to write these things down? Because you know what? You're not going to remember them. Therapists don't tell you to do things. Your friends don't tell you to do things. Because you know what? We're all human beings. And unless you have an eidetic memory, we're telling you things that are going to help, but you're going to have to remind yourself of little sticky notes around your place, on your mirror when you're getting ready in the morning or brushing your teeth or having a cup of coffee, telling yourself that you matter, that your feelings are valid. That's a reminder because, you have to remember it was beat out of your mind for so long that you didn't matter. The only person that can tell you it does is you. And when you start to believe it, you start to feel it and you start to move forward. And then you start to desire it and own that in a relationship, right? If you're dating somebody who's never present and only wants their needs met, well, guess what? You're dating somebody who's got pretty much doesn't care, has got some narcissistic traits, and that's not going to be healthy for you. Either assert what you want or maybe move on. Let me give you some final thoughts on this because, I'm stemming this podcast today. This is kind of an expansion of some posts I've been doing, but I really wanted to talk about it because there's been a few emails coming in about this and how we deal with this. And here's how I'm going to say this at the end here. Your feelings matter. You've got every right to be seen, to be heard, to be loved inside of your relationships. That's got to go both ways. And it's easy to get caught up in self-doubt, especially when that whole past starts lingering in the background and starts telling you you're not worthy, you don't deserve love. You should just shut up about your feelings, right? Because I've got clients who are doing this, and let me tell you, every time I have them talk to their partners, their new partners, they're reinforcing the open communication. They're happy they're being talked to, and that's chipping away at all this self-doubt for this one particular person I'm working with. But no matter what, you're not defined by your past. They are experiences. You have two choices. You can let those experiences define you or be a moment that you need to work on. And that's a lot of the ways I approach therapy. That it's a timeline and these things have happened, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, but they don't have to define you. You just have to learn how to work and navigate those feelings. So take a moment here to consider how you can create an environment that takes care of your own needs. And it might be as simple as checking in with yourself before getting involved in a conversation, being a little bit more vocal about your desires from a relationship standpoint. Every little step counts because if you embrace the idea that asking for love doesn't make you a burden, it makes you human. That's really important, and I think we forget that. So as you kind of move through your day here or you move through your week, keep this in mind. Prioritize your emotional well-being. Get involved with connections with people, whether it's familial or friendship-wise or romantically, that nourish you. And don't shy away from asserting your place inside of that relationship, no matter what it looks like. You deserve to feel wanted and valued, not just by others, but by yourself. And especially inside of the lifestyle, you have to remember that. You deserve to feel wanted, and that's got to go both ways. I've been involved for 26 years as a dominant. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. That whole thing went away probably, like 18 years ago. I didn't care who knew. But I dated a lot of people that I dated a lot of submissives that only ever expected of me to take care of their needs. And for a long time, I'm like, oh, well, I'm just the dom and my needs don't really matter. I'm fulfilled, right? Doing all the spanking and stuff like. No, I had other things and I neglected myself, and I went through relationships that those wounds came up. And as soon as I started seeing that and those patterns reemerged, it didn't matter because all I thought was that person was going to do it to me and I would just end the relationship. And it doesn't matter where those relationships went or that they ended. I'm where I'm at now in my life. But the reality is that it goes both ways. So, if you're a dom, don't be so brazen to say I don't need to talk about how I feel. You do, and our feelings matter just as much as it does for a submissive or anyone else that's listening to this. At any type of relationship you're in, our feelings matter. So let me talk about a couple of other quick things that are coming up. I know the end of the year is kind of rapidly approaching. My God, we're already in November. Can't believe it. So I've got some Spankos lined up. They've been reaching out to me. Thank you so much. I'm thinking I'm going to break this down into 2, possibly 3 episodes. There's a couple of Spankos that have reached out to me, but then I'm going to try to find a spankee. So I'm basically going to get the spanker and the person who's getting the spanking. That's kind of what I'm after. Right, that's number 1. I've still got the episode I want to do before the end of the year. I totally promise. I don't care how far out I get it, but I'm done almost kind of collecting all the data I've gotten. But it's going to be a fantastic episode, guys. I'm going to talk about BDSM in the Middle East. I have been speaking with people from Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, believe it or not, Lebanon, Syria, and Israel, right? BDSM looks really, really different there in that part of the world than it does in westernized culture. And my God, it's been a fascinating journey over these last 7 months. I can't thank those people enough. No names are going to get mentioned, but I'm going to get that episode out. I'm going to try to do that here maybe next week, but I can't promise you guys everything because I know then you're going to hang and like, where's the episode? And I'm like, I can't do it because I'm busy. So just bear with me. I promise I'm going to get these episodes out before the end of the year, or do my best, right, before the end of the year wrap up. That's going to come. End of the year wrap up is in about 6 to 8 weeks anyway. So yeah, I've only got about 8 shows left. I'm going to at least hit my mark of 50 shows this year. I'm really happy about that. Also, somebody's been reached out and has talked to me about doing a Discord server. So maybe let me know your thoughts on that. They wanted to ask me if they were really kind. This person's been really nice, saying they want to put together a Discord. I might put up some private content on there, or specific episodes, maybe interviews on there, or do some more worksheets that are specifically only available from there. I don't have that fleshed out yet, but if that's something that interests you, so a little bit more one-on-one with me, let me know. At least I'd be a little bit more available. But it's not fully sussed out yet, so I don't know that if that's going to launch. It's probably going to be in 2025. Feels like that's forever away, but honestly, guys, it's a couple months from now. So yeah, there's a lot going on. My book, I know I don't plug it enough, but somebody asked me today, if you want my book, Tangled Desires, the intersection between BDSM and psychology, wherever you get your ebooks, like Amazon, or you can download it. You can buy you can buy the hard print copy of it as well. That's available for you guys who like to feel books in your hands. Absolutely. People have asked me to do a live show on Riverside FM. I'm thinking about it. I don't know the logistics about it, but if you all would like to come in, if that sounds exciting, let me know in the comments, right? I'm going to put this post up on, obviously, FetLife, but reach out Spotify, reach out on Instagram, reach out on Twitter, or X, reach out to me through Apple, send me an email, thekingperspective@gmail.com. Let me know if you all want another AMA. We go live, we can talk about questions. I'm happy to do that, right? So a lot going on towards the end, but it's, typically it's not, I don't ramble this long. I feel like I'm rambling, trying to get all this information that you guys have been asking me about. Anyways, let me know what you thought about today's episode. Like I said, this was an extension of some writings, but I think a lot of people needed to hear it. God, I've been there quite a bit in my life. So let me know what your thoughts on today's episode and the other stuff I've talked about today in the comment section below. Until next time, everybody, be safe, stay kinky.